But I'm just not, you know, I mean, I don't want to get the deal where we're on every road we're putting the double yellow line down. And speaking of striping, just for y'all's information, me and the district manager, Mr. Presley, we met with the state Tuesday on these roads, and they are taking care of the striping on the segment, what gets done to them. But I asked him point blank, I said, what's your feelings on how wide does the road have to be to put white stripes on it? He said, minimum 20 foot. That's why a lot of our secondary roads, they're only 18, 17. There's no room. By the time you put double yellow line down the middle, you know, there's just no, you'd be painting the grass. The grass, you know. So I just want that for your information. Because I have been asked that before, you know, why don't you put white lights on it? It's not wide enough. And that is just my proposal right there. Yes, sir.
How soon will you be putting this out for bid so they can get it on their work dockets?
Well, I mean, as soon as y'all approve it, I can give it to the engineer tomorrow.
So do we need to
List
make,
of roads, he can start drawing up the bid package, scope of work, all that stuff. And then it usually takes, by the time he gets the bid package, that, you know, we have to advertise. And gets them out, whoever requests them, he's got to give them enough time to give people a chance to get them. I would say we could do it in a month. But there again, we don't want to get too early in the season chipping the seal. You want to get in hot weather. You want to be June, July, August, somewhere in that time. Also, to bring to your attention, I think a lot of you know that Heavy Constructors is no longer a company since Mr. Jones passed. They liquidated the company. So we may not have a lot of bidders. We usually only have two anyway, and he was one of them. I will get with Jeff, the engineer, and say, hey, you know, maybe we want to advertise it in the Democrat Gazette, get it out farther. It's hard for some of these contractors 1,500 miles away to do $182,000.
sure.
Kenny, I had a question on, is it possible with the big project that the city and HISA are doing together on that grant, that company would be interested in this $200,000 project?
It's totally different. I mean,
But they do.
I'll put it to you this way. This company that's doing the city work, paving, they did work for us about almost 6 years ago on White River Lane. They dug all that out. And I have sent them bid packets and contacted them every year after, and it's just too far for them to go.
Okay.
The only reason they're doing this is a state job, and they're actually getting their material from Hutchins.
Well, I was just wondering if they're here anyway, they've got the equipment, you know, they don't have to come back if we got the bids, they approved it.
It's totally different. They got an asphalt laydown machine, they have to bring their chip.
I see.
You know, I mean,
When you mentioned
I
earlier.
don't know if it's possible, I'll talk to the engineer about it.
Sure. You mentioned earlier the type of process you were going to do, and hearing it weren't working really well. What did you say it was going to be? It's chip and seal, right?
Double pass.
Double pass.
Yeah.
So that's 2 layers.
They'll shoot it with oil, take the machine, lay the chips down, roll it in,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll come right back and put another layer on.
Okay.
We need to get some heat on it.
Okay. Thank
Because
you.
I think you all can see our roads. We did a lot of plowing this year, and the plows are pulling up pretty good. Patches and stuff like that.
Good. Thank you.
Kenny, we appreciate you coming and explaining. I mean, you have the knowledge of which roads need to be paved, how long it's been since they've been paved, and the expertise to do it. And thank you for explaining it to those of us who know nothing about road paving in a way that even I can understand it. So I get the impression we want to have those roads paved this year because of budget constraints last year, we didn't chip and seal anything last year. I think the consensus that I get is that we want to do that. Do you need a motion for us to move, allow y'all to move forward? All right.
I would make a motion that we move forward with the road superintendent's recommendations for chip and seal work to be done this summer.
Second. I second the motion.
Okay. Bob made the motion, Ken seconded the motion. Now, I'm assuming from what you said that you're saying get with the engineers, do the bid packets, go
Yeah,
through the
the
whole
whole-
process,
the whole
right?
process,
We
yes.
want them, we
Yeah,
want them
move
done.
forward with it.
All right, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Thank you so much, Kenny, appreciate it. And for those of you who may not be aware, Kenny sprung on us about 2 weeks ago the fact that he anticipates retiring in the middle of this year. And how long have you been with the district?
This May will be 22 years.
22 years, so thank you so much. I hope you enjoy retirement as much as I have.
Not about you.
At least until I took this job, you know, what is this?
You know,
They're offering them a job.
Yeah, there you
you know, we have
I
a,
try to get rid of this.
we have a lot of,
There's no stress in the city.
go. Congratulations, Kenny.
Yes.
All the best
Thank
to you.
you,
We
thank you
appreciate
for
what you've done for us.
everything.
you know, we have a lot of road experts in Holiday Island, lots of them.
Sidewalk
And,
superintendents.
They're partially the cause for the superintendent's white hair. But,
And like I told you in the orientation too, when you brought that up, it's like, that's what the problem is. Because I don't consider myself an expert.
I know,
I learn every day.
I
We all
know.
do.
I said that
And to be
facetiously
honest,
though,
social
sir.
media-
But my point is, you know, they think that Holiday Island handles the road issues haphazardly. And that couldn't be farther from
Couldn't
the
be farther from
truth.
the truth.
And I know for the eyes of this commission, he maintains a spreadsheet of every inch of roadway in Holiday Island and what type of surface it is and when it was last given asphalt or, yeah. He's doing this with a method. It's not haphazard, and I commend him for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. We thank you so much for your
Thank
service.
you all.
All right, let's see. I talked with Colin. He didn't feel like he had anything that was important to say, so I said, do you mind if we just take you off the agenda? And he said, fine. So I think all the information that he wanted to give us, he gave us during the tour last time. So we don't need to do that. And at this point, we are ready to talk about the rec center remodel. I'd like to introduce Butch Berry, who has met with Mr. Presley and Janice, and I asked if I could be a bird on the wall and sit in all of it, and ask him to come and address the board about what he saw at the rec center, what his recommendations were. And Butch, I'm just going to turn it over to you.
All right. I'll get back up there, I guess.
You do whatever is comfortable for you.
Well.
I think you have a big inside voice too.
Okay, I do.
All right, good.
I've never been accused of being quiet.
Well, you have to corral that city council, so, I mean, that takes, you got to have a big voice for
Well,
that.
that's true. You know, and I want to thank the commission to invite me out here. Mr. Presley invited me out here, and then we met with, I guess, the building committee probably about a month ago. Went through the existing building, and it's been several years since I've been up there, and I was frankly amazed at the poor condition that it was in. I hadn't realized that it was in such bad shape. And we talked about various scenarios, whether it was worthwhile looking at that building and trying to remodel it and fix it up, because there was a lot of issues from structural. I think there was some mold, there was just a lot of issues to bring it up to code even, where the cost benefits probably, it's probably going to get to the point where it's going to cost more to do that than to build a new building that would fit your needs. That building seemed to be outdated. I think it was, of course, it was one of the first buildings built for Holiday Island, and at that time the needs of Holiday Island was a lot different than what they are today. And so we looked at various concepts of even tearing down part of the building and leaving possibly the bathrooms, and looking at that, and how that would work. And again, the bathrooms, part of the bathrooms, I think that's where part of the mold was, up in that area, and how that was going to have to be addressed. And that was it, getting back into the roofing, the waterworks. So again, it got into, you know, was it worth it to fix up an old building, or would it be better just to tear everything down and start new? That's a large building. I don't remember exactly how many square feet it is.
It's right at 6,000.
6,000 square feet. Today, and I like to, when we talk about prices of buildings, it's hard to estimate what a cost is, what I call in COVID prices. It's almost like going to the fish market and see what the daily market price is for lobster, or even beef anymore. What's it cost to buy a steak? It changes so rapidly. And that's certainly true with building products. From what I understand from the building, some of the major contractors, it's still not real stable. Hopefully in the future it's going to start stabling out. We may see a little bit of reduction, but that's liable to be a ways out. I know that I think Mr. Presley had met, and maybe the building company, with a builder, Broadway Contracting, to come out and look at it and give a proposal. And I think, again, their proposal was based on basically a 6,000 square foot building, if I'm not mistaken. And you know, when talking, and we spent probably an hour looking at the building up there and walking around it, and then came back and spent maybe another hour talking about the various scenarios. And we came to the conclusion that we'll probably really didn't need 6,000 square feet. That's a lot of wasted space. It's not being used for the intended purpose that it's being used for today. What you really need is just a small area for, you know, the office, break rooms, bathroom, a little sales area, something, maybe 1,000, 1,200 square feet, and then a bathroom, and not so much a dressing, but you would have a small dressing, but a bathroom. And again, the existing has existing showers and stuff. But maybe what we could do, and what I came up with, and I did a short little plan to see how many square feet I could work into this, and going out with outdoor showers instead of having indoor showers. So somebody could shower off before they go home. Having a small little dressing area inside where you could change from your street clothes into swimming suits. And coming back with, in women's, I had 3 water closets and 3 sinks, and in the men, a couple of water closets and a urinal. And then access to both pools. You got your kiddies pool on one side and your adult pool on the other. And then having a covered roof over it. So you could sit down in the covered area, because as we all know, if you live in the Ozarks, which is wonderful, August gets pretty hot. And so we got a shaded area. What I was thinking of was a covered area that's outdoors. And that could be a covered area where you could have picnics and stuff like that and still utilize it. And still have access to seeing what the pool is and have visual over your children or just watching the people on the adult side. That square footage came up to roughly about 1,200 square feet. So I had a total in the clubhouse, what I was calling the clubhouse, around 800 square feet, 1,200 square feet. I whittled it down to about 2,000 square feet from the 6,000 square feet. And I think that would give, and again, this is just a rough concept. It's nothing firm, but just for me to look at and something to talk about, a beginning place. And trying to come up with some numbers. And again, what used to be $100 a square foot construction, if you're building anything, if you built a shed, if you built a garage today, you know that those numbers are out the window. So again, just going out without any really firm estimates or anything, we're probably looking at about $200 to $250 a square foot, which brings the whole thing maybe with the covered area and everything, you're looking at maybe somewhere between $300,000 and $350,000. And you're probably looking at, to remodel what you've got, you're probably looking at that plus more. Because again, you never know what you've got until you start tearing into it. And in something with the existing where everything needs to be brought up to code, it's all basically demolition. You're going to go back down to basic frames, have to rewire, replumb, new mechanical, well, maybe not new mechanical, some of it's new, some of it's going to have to redo. Basically hold the roof up and redo everything inside. So you're probably looking at, possibly up to $400,000 to $500,000 or more to remodel a 6,000 square foot building that you don't need. So that's kind of the scenario that went through my mind, and then we're talking to the committee, we kind of came up with that, the best, at least that's one option. The best option, I think, is tearing it down, rebuilding it so you'll have brand new bathrooms, little community room, whatever you want to call it. It's not really a clubhouse because you don't need a clubhouse as much. More of a community room than anything else. A little sales office and place in there, bathroom in there for it, and storage. So that was kind of the concept that I came up with in a nutshell.
And that cost would include raising the building and rehabbing everything that's underneath it, the parking lot, doing whatever it is has to be done.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the parking lot. I didn't even consider the parking lot needing any
Well,
work.
I was just thinking of the area where the old building, the current building is.
Yeah, it would all be covered up, new concrete, new slab. And keeping, and probably the only thing that you'd really keep, and that I wouldn't want to move, is the pool equipment. Keeping that where it's at, because that would get way too expensive to do anything with. And there's no reason to move it. It's all plumbed, it's in good shape, and we just build around it and use that as a basis for expanding. And then have a breezeway between the bathroom, changing room, and then the little community room. So you got a straight shot between one pool to the other pool, and then you've got your doors coming into the changing room. And then you got outside showers on both ends. So you can just shower off, and then you don't have to worry about having any indoor plumbing as far as showers go.
The staff had told me that they really were looking for something that they could see both pools. Let's say we usually have one or maybe two people on duty there, but is there a plan or idea that they would be able to see both pools from one location?
Inside
Sure.
the office is what.
Well, and in the office area,
Yeah.
that would all be,
Inside the entry.
yeah, that'd be be glass
Glass,
on
okay.
both sides. So, yeah, and glass in the little windows.
I've done my research too.
Oh, yeah, and I didn't bring a PowerPoint, but I've got a little floor plan. But yeah, basically it'd be glass on,
Probably through the middle, the long part.
beg pardon?
Where you have the breezeway between the two pools.
Yeah.
You want, glass kind of there, and then maybe one on this side, that
Yeah.
side, yeah.
I can
And you gave.
pass this out over,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
I kind of like mine.
Yeah, it's similar.
Similar.
Yeah,
Did you give Kim our storage area?
Yeah.
There? Okay.
Where's the big parking lot here?
yeah, the parking lot's up here, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now I got.
I did
let's
not
get
orient
oriented
him in big storage area, I did not do that.
Well, I'm
You're
gonna
right.
give you my plans here, and I'll show you.
Well, I think,
Okay, so
is
Butch,
that this?
Butch.
Well, close, but you know what, on the one side, because of space, if you get, can you, like,
What direction does it face?
Yeah, you're gonna have to give me some orientation. Where's the parking lot?
Parking lot is up here.
parking lot?
Okay, the big pool is to the right.
Okay,
Turn, that's the little pool
That's the
on your
little
left.
Okay.
Big pool is on the right of the drive.
front entrance is there.
Yeah,
Show me again, please.
This is the front entrance.
Okay, all right.
He forgot Kim's one.
I didn't put in Kim's.
With the
request.
last presentation we had from the Broadway contractors, it took me forever to figure out where was the front of the building.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where it says covered area and it's got the little
Mhm.
concrete
This is
that's
the
going out to the big pool.
Got it.
This would be the big pool
The
on that
big pool is on this
Right.
side, and the little pool is where it says NS. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I would
Mechanical.
put this building this way though. I'll give you my new plans.
Well, and this, again, it's just, it's all preliminary, so.
Yeah.
So what type of construction would you propose for a new facility?
Well, there's no reason, I mean, at this point in time, I would probably go with a combination. The office area, I'd probably just go with wood construction. There's no need to do a metal building system. We could, and it's just your standard roof trusses, wood trusses. There's no need, it won't have to be sprinkled or anything like that for fire rating. The shower in the bathroom area, that could be wood construction also. It's just, we're looking for something from a maintenance standpoint more than anything. Concrete block is good maintenance, it's gonna last a long time, you don't have to worry about it. So I think that'd be one consideration. Cost will go up a little bit for block.
So concrete
of
block
course.
is more expensive then?
Yeah.
But we want something that'll be around at least 50 years from now.
You're,
If we're gonna,
the major
Go down
cost
this
of the
road.
building is not in the building, the actual building, it's the maintenance of the building.
yes.
So you can spend a little bit more on the building, and over the 20 years, your operating cost is what you're gonna be paying for every year. So maintenance and everything else, so the more, least maintenance that you can have, and that's like if you did go with a wood frame on the office community area, I'd probably go with something like a hardy board siding, that's a cement siding.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we don't know how long paint really lasts, but it's gonna last a lot longer on that than regular paint.
Well, Cheryl went to get some copies, so if we could share one for each two people. Cheryl's got copies of them.
I'm sorry, I should have made more copies.
Okay. And I need one for Larry.
And this would be on a concrete slab, is that?
Oh, yeah,
correct?
yes, sir,
Okay.
yeah.
I think from my perspective, it makes a huge amount of sense
I need one.
to downsize.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know if they ever used 6,000 feet in that building, fully utilized it, but we sure don't need it today. And it's sad that we're at this point where we've got this antiquated structure that is, it's really just dying in itself.
Well, we have to remember that building was built originally as the community center, so that's
Yeah.
why it's so
Yeah.
large. In fact, Larry told us that it was built when there were only 17 families
Thanks,
here.
Cheryl.
Well, now, if you're gonna do anything that you need a community center, you use the ballroom. So we're right now having to maintain air condition and heat a 6,000 square foot building that don't need that much space at all.
Like a quarter.
Janice told me that they're actually working out fine in the island room, which I don't know how big, I'm not any good at estimating square feet, but
That one is, it's probably 1,200 square feet. maybe?
Yeah,
What do you think?
probably.
How big is the ising room? It's 12, maybe not even that much, 800-900?
yeah,
Yeah, that sounds-
yeah,
And it's
exactly.
nice.
And if we're gonna spend $300,000 to $350,000, my personal opinion is I would like to have us be at the end of all of that and have a structure that we are pleased with, that functions well for the employees and for the people that use that swimming pool area, and that we can be proud of. So many of our buildings in Holiday Island are 40 to 50 years old, and they're looking a little down in the dumps. And, we need to go on a clean up, fix up spree for a while. And
Likewise, though, we have a responsibility to be physically
Exactly.
responsible.
Exactly.
And if, in my mind, it makes no sense to spend $500,000 fixing something that you don't need.
And that it doesn't function for its purpose anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Kenny had a comment.
Kim?
I still have a hard, because I guess I'm, been around here so long, I still have a hard time, I'm still thinking of, community center.
Yeah.
You know,
No, it's a
it's really
point of
not the
sale,
function.
it's a point of sale terminal is what it is,
Yeah,
with some bathrooms.
right.
Yeah.
And access for people to shower and use for the bathroom, for the swimming pools.
I mentioned to Janice in another meeting we had that basically the two purposes of that building are restrooms for the people in that whole area. And they're closed some days during the winter now because we're not open 7 days a week. But during the summer, it's check in and out swimmers and keep the swimmers safe, and also check in and out golfers. Those are the only two major purposes. And like Chair said, if you want anything else, you go up to the ballroom. That's the big community center building. But I had another question for you about how long, if we get an RFP out and everything, would you have to make more detailed plans for?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you'd have to go through, and again, it depends on how we decided to do this. But if you really wanted to go out and put it out for bids with complete working drawings and specifications, for me, and where I am, it's hard to, I can't imagine, but it seems, even with the COVID prices and everything going up, everybody's so busy.
Yeah.
And that includes myself. So I'll probably have, at least 6 months before we could probably get anything ready to put out for bids. The other option is also, if we've got, and it'd be the commission have to go out and ask for getting a bid from a project manager, construction manager. And that's another option. Where we have, as the architect I'm working with, the construction manager, kind of like a design build concept, where they'll come up and give a guaranteed maximum price. This will not exceed, say, $400,000. And then any savings, anything that we cut or we can save money on, then you get the credit for that. And then, of course, anything, we add, if there's things, whatever, new lighting for the pools or something like that that we don't plan on, then those would be extra costs. But that's pretty standard.
Well, excuse me. I like that design build concept because it's been closed how long, Jen? 4 months?
Longer than that, I think it was in September.
Okay, 6 months it's been closed. If it would be another 6 months before we get
We
complete plan.
wouldn't be able to get anything done for this year.
How about design and build?
And we could get something done definitely by design and working with design build, probably still wouldn't be able to get it completed this summer.
No, it makes sense.
Because we're still, we're March.
Yeah.
And I don't know about y'all, but for me anymore, and I didn't ever believe my grandmother, but she always says the older I get, the faster the time goes. And we blink and it's Christmas.
Yeah.
But it's about the same thing. It'd still take me 3 months probably to be able to get to where I can start getting the actual good documents down to work with a contractor or a project manager.
So there we're looking at October and then to get it
Yeah.
out for the bid.
Well,
I think this season is, it makes sense to put it off until fall to do the actual construction or winter.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, at the point where we are now,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you absolutely can't be doing anything during pool season.
And I don't know for sure, but I'm hoping and knocking on wood that we've seen the highest rates that we've seen on construction prices. So if anything, we may see some reductions. Knock on wood,
Well, we know interest rates are gonna go up.
Yeah.
That's
And
true.
that typically causes a reduction in home building,
Yeah.
and which will cause a reduction in the demand for
Building.
building products.
Right.
So, yeah, it could work in our favor.
And I think we've all kind of come to the grips with the fact that it's not going to be resolved this swim season. I think y'all are already working on a plan on how to handle the swimming pools during this season, and I can't imagine doing construction during
No,
swimming
you
season.
can't, you just can't.
So,
I don't even know if a contractor would allow that with people
Yeah.
that close.
yeah,
So
I agree.
it's kind of
I
a,
agree.
dead deal there.
So-
As far as that. We could still use the bathrooms there, though. I mean, the water's been shut off in the building, and we were talking about that this morning. I think we can turn the water on back in the bathrooms there. We're not tearing down the building unless it's a nuisance that we have to tear it down before that. We could still let the people use the bathrooms there, which would eliminate putting porta potties over by us. So the bathrooms could be still used, and, just nothing else will be open over there. Simple as that. They also give us time to clear it out, because we gotta get everything out of there if it's going down, downhill. So, yeah, I mean, that's what we need. So that's the way it goes. And, then you have time to work on plans and readjust them and tweak them and this and that until you come up with an idea of what you want. 'Cause I got something for you.
Well,
But anyway, it would be helpful to know that anyway, because we're in limbo right now.
Ken?
yes, just like we said to Kenny earlier, and he is gonna move on, going forward with paving, so forth, starting maybe tomorrow, April 1st. Is there any way that we could give Danny a motion or something to get started with maybe Butch and get our first in line, so to speak? Because if we don't do something, we'll be looking at Labor Day. Oh, let's see, we should start this process.
Yeah, we
April
need to
1st
do it.
tomorrow, we could at least get in the queue, you know what I mean?
It needs
Yeah,
to
I
be
think
decided.
we've kicked the can here for the last 6 months, and it's time to do something.
Yeah.
And,
Well, we've had, 2 structural engineers, 4 contractors, and an architect all look at that building and say, I wouldn't rehab it if I was you.
Yeah.
And what I like about this is we're gonna end up with new construction, a good-looking building that functions and functions well for us, and something the community can be proud of, That's what I would like to have.
and it falls within a budget.
And
that
it
we
falls
can
within the
afford
budget we
without-
can afford,
without,
exactly.
borrowing money or anything.
Yes,
so.
yes.
Kenny.
Kenny?
I just wanted to bring out, and maybe Mr. Berry could back me on this. Anywhere where you got wood rafters, wood fascia board, soffit, you really ought to consider wrapping them. Maintenance free.
Anything exposed for sure.
Oh, rather than exposed rafters,
Every
yeah,
year.
yeah,
You'll
yeah.
pay a little more money. but
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
it'll save
Well,
a
but
lot.
we don't want to be back in the shape we are now.
Yes, exactly. All right, so I think I'm hearing a consensus here from us. Does someone want to make a motion that we move forward on this project or a version of this project?
I would make a motion to direct the district manager to move forward with this project and to work with Mr. Berry in the development of plans, and that will put us in a position to go out for bids.
I second that motion.
Well,
Oh.
with the caveat that we will tear down the old building.
Well, that's part of the,
Yes,
Yeah.
but I mean, stating definitively.
She wants it definitive.
I want that, built. No, but
no, we,
I don't want any ambivalence or
yeah, no,
Yes.
ambiguity.
Ambiguity.
Ambiguity in the.
I agree with that, Phyllis, and if need be, I can put that in the motion, that the end game here is to remove the existing building and replace it with a new, much smaller functional building.
In as much as that's been the stumbling block for the whole
Yeah.
time period, I just think.
Okay, so we have a motion.
I'd like some discussion before we vote.
Do we have a second?
Yes, I second it.
Okay, you seconded. All right, yes, now we can have discussion.
I was called by a resident and they asked, is there any way to save the metal roof? And Broadway Construction said, well, maybe you could take it off and move it to some other building, but I'm not a builder, but I don't think so.
I had to look at that metal roof. I don't know if it's a screw down or if it's a
It's
standing.
screwed down.
If it's a screw down. Anytime you poke holes in a roof, or you you remove your screws, you better make real sure that you're gonna put your screws back in the same hole.
Okay.
So I would,
That wasn't my answer, but I wanted to get from an expert.
And out of,
Do you have any screw cans?
It's too bad, the roof is beautiful, but the building is disposable, it's not working, so, okay, thank you.
Do we have any more discussion? All right, we have a
and I
motion.
will say one thing too, speaking of screw down roofs. People like metal roofs, but if they're screwed down, and if they're not properly screwed down, in other words, most people screw them on the flat parts of the of the standing ridge. Well, over the years, that metal will expand and contract, and what happens is that screw, what I call wiggle wobble, that's a technical term, gets loose, and when it does, that's where your water comes in. So every 10 years, you're supposed to go up and put caulking around that screw, or redo and retighten those screws. I mean, there's a method to do screw downs, but most roofers take the easier method. And within 10 years, you've got a leaky roof and you don't know where it's leaking,
Thank you.
even for a metal roof.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to tear down, there's a fancier
Well,
word.
To direct the district
direct the-
manager to move forward.
Yes, to direct the district manager to move forward with demolishing the old building, working with Mr. Berry to design an appropriate plan for new construction. Is that correct? Is that,
Mhm.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, sir, you got your marching orders. In case you didn't have anything else to do, we'll keep you busy now.
I'm up for it.
You're up for
You
it.
are, we know that.
Butch, thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thank you.
coming today.
Put your phone in.
Any public
Oh,
questions?
thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
I appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity.
And thank you for having a beginning point to look at. I think that helps everybody.
Well, I had to do that to be able to figure out how many square feet we're really looking
Yeah,
at.
Yeah.
yeah. Even if I have trouble finding the front door.
Well, and I had to remember which way is north.
Well, that was my
I went
question.
the opposite direction than you did.
He's aware of
All right,
Look at that and figure it out from there.
okay, thank you, y'all.
All right,
Thank you. Butch.
Thank you, good talking to you.
let's
Thank you.
see.
And then.
Thank you much. All right, let's go
I
back
assume
and,
we'll get interim reports or updates.
Yes, ma'am, I will make sure of that.
all right, let's go back and pick up the items that we moved. We're going to do our
Thank you.
second reading of amending the Code of Regulations for Chapter 2, Section 2-33, excuse me. I believe that's the one where we moved the work session to the third Monday and the regular meeting to the fourth Monday. This would be our second reading for that. Is there any discussion? Okay, I guess we need just a motion to accept that.
Also move.
Okay,
Accept.
Ken has moved to accept the amendment of the Code of Regulations on meetings. A second, please.
I'll second.
Okay, Phyllis has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I think by doing that, it has made it easier to get our financials in a timely manner, and we appreciate all the work that you've gone to. Jennifer has managed to take us from being behind about 6 months all the way up to where we now have February's totally completed, all of the adjusting entries done, and by having that extra week or so, it helps. So we appreciate the work that you've done with that.
And I appreciate the things beyond the calendar work that you've done in discovering things that maybe weren't being done correctly and getting us,
Helping square us away.
I'm trying.
you're doing a great job. Thank
We
you.
want to be legal and we want to be financially correct. All right, now, let's see, new business. Perhaps you should just talk a minute about this regulation 2022-002 on the roads and bridges.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. As we've discussed in these meetings before, there are legal considerations and implications when you take public money, such as state road funding, and apply it to these roads which are owned by the Holiday Island Suburban Improvement District, because those are essentially privately owned roads, although they are for public use. And so we consulted with our attorney, as well as the city consulted with their attorney on how to make this lawful and proper and defensible in the way we apply state funds to our roads here. So in response and as a result of those discussions, the city attorney and our attorney corresponded and developed this regulation. Essentially what needs to happen is when public monies are spent on these roads, those roads are conveyed to the city. And they will, from that point forward, they're owned by the city and the city's responsibility for future maintenance on those roads. This is the first time we've done that. This section of roadway is, you remember how many miles it was, Mayor? It was 4.2, I believe is the number. A little over 4 miles of roadway. That equates to a little over 6% of the roadways in Holiday Island. And so it's not a huge portion, but it's significant. And as a result of these regulations, as I said, these roads will now be owned by the city. And in the future, we will have to do an analysis of what that threshold is between HICID owning the roads and what portion that the city owns and where the public monies are going to be spent. And at what point is it necessary to do another AOB study and look at the value of the roads? And so it's a complicated legal matter and it's a complicated formula, but this is uncharted water. But this is the way to go about it. And Mayor, I appreciate working with you and getting this done, because the end result is we have over a $500,000 road project funded mostly by the state, and it's going to be a good benefit to our property owners here.
Absolutely.
Could I make one slight adjustment to what you just said?
Sure.
And it's purely a technicality, and nothing to do with, doesn't change anything about how we're going to move forward or anything like that. But Danny used the term owned by the city. The city won't own the roads. What the city by law takes responsibility for is the maintenance of those roads. In other words, the city has responsibility for maintaining the right-of-way. The city obtains the right-of-way to the roads. Ownership, in legal terms, is, I think the term is fee simple ownership, which I have no idea what it means, but the district will still own the fee on those roads. They still own the dirt under the roads. It's just that the city is responsible. The city has the right of way, and the city has the responsibility to maintain them. So I know it gets a little bit confusing when people think, well, the city owns the roads now. No, they really don't.
They really don't. Okay.
And in the cities I've lived in the past, have been cities forever and never started out as a suburban improvement district. Most property owners own the property to the middle of the road, but they don't have the right of way.
That's
The
right.
city has the right of way.
Right.
If you pay taxes all the way to the middle of the road.
Yeah.
So technically, the district will still own the fee on the dirt under the roads. The city will have the right of way and the responsibility to maintain that right of way.
Thank you, Mayor.
Dan.
Mr. Mayor?
One question.
I have a question for you.
And this is not completely uncharted territory, is it, going with this method? Didn't you have conversations with, I know Fairfield Bay, they do something quite similar, don't they?
Right, when Fairfield Bay is a POA and a city, and they do the same thing. When when they use tax money to pave a road, the POA owns all the roads. They have the road department, just like the district has a road department. When they pave a road using tax money, they pass an ordinance accepting the right-of-way for those roads, and then they pay the POA an annual maintenance fee to maintain those roads, and we will be doing the same thing. Once you pass an ordinance dedicating the roads or a regulation or whatever, dedicating the roads that we're going to be paving to the city, we'll pass an ordinance accepting responsibility for that right-of-way, and then we will negotiate a contract to, for the city to pay the district to do the annual maintenance, which will primarily be, ditch maintenance and snow plowing.
Dan, I tell you what, I can't imagine the number of hours that you spent putting this all together. And I, as a resident, appreciate it so much. Because to be able to spend $500,000 when we all know what a stretch it was to even get $200,000, I mean, we're going to be able to, in essence, triple the amount of work. And the fact that you told us last time you intend to focus on the main arteries in the community, I think that's so important also. So from my standpoint, thank you so much for what you and the city council have all done, the hours. You've invented a city from scratch, golly. It's just, I just really appreciate it. Ken.
Madam Chair, I wanted to echo what Suzanne said, and if you come by here anytime, 8 to 4, 8 to 5, you'll see his gray pickup out there. And I don't think his wife has seen him. I don't think his wife has seen him for about 4 months, but at any rate, I had a question for Danny and Mayor, and that is, if we pass this today, which we will, I think, will that help us? Let's say Woodsdale is a heavily traveled road going to the island here. Would this motion help us to do another project like we're doing this summer for State Line and so forth?
We have to do another one.
Interesting you would bring that up. I've already submitted the grant application for the next, hopefully the next grant, and it would be to do all of Woodsdale from the bridge to the city limits and State Line from the four-way up, from the three-way up to the four-way, because we're not going to be able to afford to do that last, half mile or whatever, 3/4 of a mile of State Line on this current project, but I've already submitted the grant application. It looks to me like, looking at the grant history, which you can look at online, going all the way back for years, it looks like about every 3 years is when cities get a repeat grant, that you won't get one every year because everybody asks for the money. But given the fact that, we've never asked for money before this year's project, I'm hoping that maybe they'll put us on a 2-year cycle till we get caught up. And just to be technical, the project is $607,000, not $500,000.
That's true, the price went up.
And
since
we
the bidding.
had a meeting with the state this Tuesday, right?
Yes,
Monday
Tuesday.
or Tuesday. The contractor was up here and the state engineers. And for that price, I mean, it's turnkey. They do the engineering, they do everything, so.
And was that correct that you already know who got the contract?
The contract went to a company in southern Arkansas. They're quite a ways away from here. I don't remember the name.
But the contract's
They were
been
there.
out.
They were there at the meeting with us
Yeah.
Tuesday,
Oh,
the contractor. So
okay.
we got to visit with them.
I have the name of the company, but I don't remember what it is.
It just feels so good to know that there is a company and the contract's out. That's wonderful, wonderful news.
Yeah, they'll probably start here in 4 to 6 weeks, I think.
That's great. Excellent. All right. Did we ever make a motion to accept this?
No.
Did we make a motion? Does anybody remember?
I move to accept regulation number 2022-002.
I'll second.
Okay. Commissioner Surratt's made a motion to accept Regulation 2022-002 concerning roads and bridges. Commissioner Dyer has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous approval, and excellent, excellent. All right, sir.
Move right along.
Now, since I'm just jumped all over this agenda, you won't want to create one of these for me again. Can we go back now and pick up the financials, the
Sure.
financial report?
Yes.
It was a suggestion, not a rule.
Yes.
And can you bring that up and go back to this page? More like that. I had, this is a little bit out of focus. I don't know if you can see these numbers or not, but I had some January slides in here that, and you have that information. But I'm just going to start on page 4 and move right into February. Otherwise, I'm providing you with outdated information. This is up to date as of the end of February. And what I'd like to do is just go by department. As I said, this is a little bit blurry here, but roads, water, wastewater, and then all the way across. And you can see I've got here a dollar amount of the expenditures year to date at the end of February and then a percentage. And then I'll update this each month so we can see, you can track all the way across the board where we're at. Any questions on any of these? You can see that the marina,
Yeah.
I think it's marina that I'm looking at right here, this
Right.
column. He's expended 16.5%, which is, as in terms of a percentage, quite a bit, but we're moving into
His
fishing
business.
season and, so during this time of year, February and March, he does a large portion of his purchasing for the upcoming boating and fishing, all that goes on down at the marina. So,
Any
Yes,
question
sir.
on that? Well, if Colin buys 50 T-shirts and a bunch of pizza stuff and so forth and so on, that's on his management, that's not out of this money, is it?
that's correct. Yes, what he sells down there in terms of merchandise and all of that, that's his business on that side of the ledger.
Well, when we took the tour, he was showing us about the lifts and the stainless steel wire and cable and so forth. Is that what some of these costs are?
No.
Yes, and things that he's doing with the boat slips.
Wood?
I don't have an itemization,
Okay,
but he does some on his side in terms of the food and merchandise and all of that. Now, the steel cables would be ours.
yeah.
Anything that's like a capital outlay would be ours,
Yes,
correct?
the steel cable, anything to maintain the marina.
The deck
The
replacement.
deck, replacing the deck,
All right.
of course, the walkway that we just did, all of that
Good,
is
thank you.
passive expense. Can you go to the next one, Cheryl? Okay, and I will recreate this each month as well, showing our revenue. This is as of the end of February. And you can see that water and wastewater, this is this one here. That is just, the water bills and the revenue that comes in from water. And then you can see that on 18-hole operations in the marina, the revenue is coming in here because people are starting to play more golf. And then here with the marina, it's that season and we build for boat slip rentals. So a lot of people are renewing that and we're seeing that revenue come in.
Yeah, the 18-hole probably includes the amenities card,
Yeah,
the
Yes.
fee,
Yes.
and the
Yes.
cart, all that stuff that I wrote him a $600 check for.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mine was 14.
And
you got two of you.
So as
thank you
of,
for that. Really.
as of the end of February, if everything was even, which of course we know nothing is ever even, it would be 16%. Am I correct?
For which
Expended or of the year?
You kind of have to look at it by part. Well, like he said, some of them have front-loaded things and some of them aren't. But there, I believe this one right here will kind of show
This is
you
showing
that
overall.
Overall,
overall
okay.
of your total budget.
Mhm.
So through February of our total budget, we were hoping to bring in 4.7 million in revenue, and we've only brought in, as of right now, 2.6.
Mhm.
And then for the expenditures, everything combined for the 4.2, you've expensed 4.5. So you've spent more than what you've brought in. But there again, a lot of things are front-loaded, and then assessments start coming in mid-year.
Danny, would you mind,
Yes, sir.
would you mind going back one slide to the second of the revenue?
Okay.
On fire, what would we receive revenue on fire department?
That's that security.
The security
Security
fee.
fee on the water bill.
Which is like, whatever it is on the water bill, and the security fee, as you know, goes to police and fire, and I think it's between $5 and $6
Okay.
on the water bill.
I
Is
wanted
it,
maybe
is it
for-
halved into each bucket? Okay.
Madam Chair, I wanted for the maybe April meeting, if you won't mind, on the financial part for the fire department. I'd like to get a reading from the auxiliary, which has done such a tremendous job, how much they have contributed, maybe even last year, just take 21, and because I have no idea. I've heard amounts, from the auxiliary, but I'd like to know that figure from the auxiliary, from the fire department. And also, we've had some large expenditures in fire lately, and summer coming up probably would be in April on the fire truck, the truck and so forth.
Most of that is actually, it's in March, so next month, yes, there was.
That'd be March,
See
okay,
that.
okay. But the thing I was talking to Danny about one day was, we have some equipment throughout the district that is old, that is not being used, used trucks that are inoperative, but some of that stuff is worth money, okay? We had a big truck, it's a 550, Ford F-50, 550. That's about the biggest Ford truck you can buy. And it wasn't running, so we're trading it in and we're getting money for that. So I would like in the summer, maybe June, to have what we used to do in school districts and a lot of companies do, have a rummage sale, have a garage sale, have an access sale. I don't care what you call it, but try to get rid of maybe $10,000 worth of stuff. And maybe have it on a parking lot down here, maybe have it on a golf course parking lot up at the 18 hole, or somehow that every department head comes up with things that they've bought and they no longer use, rather. They're out of date, they're one person's treasure, but they're junk right now. And I think, when you're talking about a 550 truck, you're talking oodles of money, cash. And I'd like to see that some of that come back into our treasury.
I know that one of the school districts I worked in actually did an online thing, posted what was available and people bid online.
Sure.
It wasn't the old-fashioned auction that we think about where you go and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
but I know it would help you clean up the
Yeah.
fixed asset report, wouldn't it?
There's a lot of notes, because that was done, this past year when, I started working on year end, because I know Miss Suzanne had asked, she came to me that one day and I'm showing her the asset list, or she looked at the balance sheet and asked,
Yeah.
is this accurate? And I was like,
Yeah.
no.
I
But let me
liked
get
her
a handle on it.
honesty.
And we did, there's, like you stated, there are a lot of trucks and everything that are still listed on the asset list because they have to be, because they're in our possession.
Sure.
That the department heads did say, does not run, sitting over here, does not run. So I did mark a lot of those, and in the spreadsheet that I updated and that's prepared for the audit, for this coming audit,
Good.
just based on their conversations, what could possibly be disposed of this year, like you're stating, through an auction to get funds and everything back. So there is a list already started of
Great.
assets.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Or Madam Chair?
Yes, sir, please.
We did do that about 5 years ago. When I was on the board, most of the equipment was out of the road department, but I think Kenny probably organized it, but they made up a list and put it out for bids, and you know, if it was a reasonable bid, we sold it to the bid. If it wasn't a reasonable bid, it might be on this coming one.
Try it again.
Well, I know that Lauren has talked about that one of those little golf cart garages was full of obsolete kitchen equipment.
Yeah.
Now, you know, commercial kitchen equipment is expensive, so, you know, there might be somebody that'd buy it just for the cost of the stainless steel that's in it, you know, so, I guess you have to declare that stuff obsolete and then go beyond there. I don't know what the,
And we
But
do have a regulation that governs that. There's a threshold, I believe it's $10,000. Anything above that must be sold at public auction.
okay.
So you'd have to do it, you know, I guess you could do it online or whatever, circulate it, like we're doing this vehicle in a newspaper and then just accept bids.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we've gotten some really strong bids on that vehicle.
That's
And the
amazing.
bids will close at the end of the day on Monday.
Good, thank you.
So,
Appreciate it.
Okay. So this is just an overall revenue and expenditures, and of course, I'll update this each month, and you can see kind of how we're tracking. Go ahead, Cheryl. And this is really a 10,000-foot view of revenue and expenditures. But what I want to point out here is as this chart is filled in from left to right as we move through the year, you'll be able to see how we're tracking on our revenue and expenditures. And so I think I kind of like to look at it from this perspective. Hopefully we want to see those lines cross.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Before the end of the year.
Before the end of the year, at some point, we will see those lines do that. Okay, go ahead. And this is our reserves. Now, I want to point out something on this. When I showed you the reserves at the end of January, it was showing 41%. There's really been no change, but I'm looking at the calculation a little bit differently, and that's why I wanted to point this out. Where it says February 2022 CD balance in blue, $1.3 million. Within that CD balance, there's about $230,000, $240,000 of funds that is actually restricted funds, and it is the equipment replacement fund. And those funds are restricted, so.
And it can't be considered part of the reserve?
It's really kind of subjective, I guess. But I'll put it this way, if you show that as part of the reserves, it's 41%, and if you don't include that, it's 35%. So that's the reason why this number is different than what I showed you last month. It's equipment reserves. And
It just seems like it's
Jennifer and I-
reserve money.
Well, but it is restricted for equipment, and that's based on our policy, and the auditors look at whether or not we are in keeping with our own policies.
Okay.
And so Jennifer had a conversation about, you know, philosophically, what's the right way to represent what you have in reserves. And I would rather be more conservative with it, so I think I'll use this, because our policy does say equipment replacement fund is restricted.
Okay.
And hopefully we can drop that number just a little bit. I'm hoping that the equipment doesn't have to go up, but we won't know, because I've tried to go through the audit and understand like how it's coming and trying to find all the policies or whatever. So I'll work with the auditor in May to go through that step or whatever and make sure that that equipment reserve is still, because it doesn't look like it's changed the past few years, so I don't know if it's been looked at. So I want to make sure that we are in line with HICID policy, you know, y'all's regulations and everything, plus what we do. So we should know during the audit, after the audit or whatever, if we need to adjust that number a little bit.
Sure, makes me feel better.
Hopefully we can go down a little bit and
Just makes me-
add that.
Yeah.
But it is going to be looked at, but I didn't want to change it or do anything since, you know,
Yeah.
this is kind of my first year with it and
Well,
everything, and I didn't want to.
I tried reading the audit report too. I'm glad I'm not the only one that had trouble with it.
Yeah, But that is numbers and it is in there and it is stated and there is a calculation. I've been trying to find the worksheets. I've got a feeling it was on the laptop that was stolen. So I'm hoping that they have all the backup with that of the calculations that have to go in there, because just reading this, you can't see all the back end of it. And I want to ensure that we pull everything in correctly. So I'll work with the auditors on that. And so that 200, it is about 240. Hopefully, you know, like I said, hopefully it won't have to go up.
Jennifer, how does that fund get fed?
That's a good question. I
And
wondered that.
is it a percentage of the overall revenues of the district that go into it?
That's a good
or-
question. That's what I have
Okay.
read. And
Do you think it's just like an adjusting entry that they put in?
yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. And I think it just has to look at kind of your assets and you know where that's at and the values and kind of what the policy is of your replacement values and things like that. So it has all of that back end rolled into it. But like I said, I can't find the figures of where it was backed into it the last time to
year.
make sure that I'm, you know, pulling the exact things. I don't want to pull something and say something and then they say, wait, you forgot that account.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah.
So.
I want to make one more point, if you don't mind, before I forget. There could be a significant shift in the calculation of the fleet replacement fund, because some of these items that are big ticket items, we just did a lease.
Yes.
And when you
Yeah.
start leasing things, that shifts the calculations for a fleet replacement fund. A backhoe that's, you know, well over $100,000, the Exmark mowers that we leased and all of that. So that is going to play into this as well.
Danny, about the time you came on board, and Jennifer also, we were looking at quite a delay in our audit last year, 21. And the auditor said, well, we're having the same problem as all of you are having, getting people to work in the field and so forth. Are they going to be a little earlier this year than last?
We
He
have
said it
it, we
would
have
be.
it on the schedule.
He said it would.
Yeah, when he was here, that guy.
Yes, we have it on the schedule. We've been working with him. We've been emailing saying, hey, send
As
us what.
recently as this morning.
Yes. And he finally confirmed they will be here May 18th, 19th, and 20th to
Okay,
begin their
good.
audit.
Thank you.
Yes,
I think we'll be ahead of the game.
Okay, thanks.
yes.
Okay, next one, Cheryl. So this chart here, I wanted to explain, as you already know, obviously, that a big portion of our revenue is from the AOBs. And so we budgeted this green line that you see going all the way across. That is what we budgeted for AOB revenue for 2022, $2.35 million. Now, when you do enterprise fund type accounting that we're doing here, when something gets billed, it shows as revenue, even though you haven't received it yet. And if you have payables, your AP that's sitting on the books, even though you haven't received it, if it's on the books, it's showing already as a revenue. And that's different than governmental fund accounting and enterprise accounting. They're just two different, it's apples and oranges. So at the end of 2021, December 31st, we had, as you can see right here, we had $1.3 million, that's blue, that's past due. So that's AOBs that were sitting out there on what I call orphan lots that people just quit paying their AOBs. Then, so that's the amount that was owed on past due AOBs. And you can see here the red is total AOBs. Well, then in February, we sent out bills for 2.5 million roughly. That brought our collectibles, or what's, been billed for AOBs up to 3.9 million. And then you can see down here, this is what we've actually collected. We're at 77,000 that we have collected in 2022. And so what you're going to see is the past due amount, hopefully, will start dropping as people pay past due accounts. You'll see collections coming up, and once again, we hope this yellow line reaches above what we've budgeted, or at least meets what we've budgeted for AOB revenue. And then the total amount due that's in red will start to fall as these outstanding bills are paid, then that line will start to come down. So as you see these trends through the year, it just gives you a look at how our AOBs are being paid. And what we hope to do, if we are successful in dealing with the county and some other strategies, is get these orphan lots into the hands of a responsible property owner that will pay what they owe for the amenities here in Holiday Island. And because last year there were over 600 properties that were purchased at the Commissioner of State Lands that people had gone into default. It was foreclosure. We did a foreclosure here. The county did a foreclosure for non-payment of county taxes, and the county refers those properties to the state, to the Commissioner of State Lands. And then people pick them up for $50. And then oftentimes, unfortunately, they don't know what they bought. They come here, maybe the lot is not buildable, but they didn't know that when they bought it. It just looked like a good deal. And they decide, well, I don't think I want to pay $480 for an AOB on a lot that I really don't like. And then the cycle repeats itself. So all of that to say, we want to get these properties into the right hands and then try to figure out strategies to break that cycle of these revolving property owners. So was this the last slide? Okay, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Well,
and I'll update all of these each month.
and I like this one too. The one thing that I saw on our balance sheet is we had AOBs past due of $1.3 million, but there's an offsetting entry for uncollectible assessments, which on the balance sheet brings that down some. And that number has risen. Do you have any idea how that, again, I think has to be a manual entry. Is that correct?
Which one? The one
The minus figure for uncollectible
that one has to,
assessments.
that one has to do, because I'm still researching on that one and doing some more back end on that one. That one has more to do with things that get written off when it goes to foreclosures.
Oh, okay.
You'll
So it's
never-
not an offsetting entry against, okay.
No.
All right. But that makes sense, what you're saying.
Yes, ma'am.
As
Gotcha.
far as the 2022 AOB collections though, I mean, this isn't anything alarming that only 77,000 have been paid today.
Correct. They were.
Because the majority of people probably wait till closer to October when it's due to write that check, so.
The bills for the AOBs for 2022 didn't go out until probably around the second week of February.
And
So
they're
it's
not
just-
due until October 1st.
Yeah, it's just been billed and we're
Yeah.
8 months away from being due. So good point though.
Danny, I'd like to start the budget process. You were coming on brand new, Jennifer's here last year, and some of the board members are new. But I'd like to start the budget process a little bit earlier, and I'll tell you why. I've had a couple of residents, 3 actually, ask me why when we were, I'm gonna just use some round figures here, okay? They're not exact. If we were charging $790 for an assessment, and then we went down to $762 the next year, and then this year, I've forgotten what it was, but let's say $780. Okay, $790, $760, $782. Okay, and when we were incorporated, and I'm looking at Linda here and Mayor Dan, who've been on the board a long time, and she probably knows it better than I do for sure. But one of the reasons for corporation was to make a HICID last longer. You all agree with that, you saw it, and that's why it was voted in, I hope. But I'm wondering about our budget, and it's, let's say, 4.7 million, and that's why we're getting 782 out of, for most of our income is for assessments, right?
Half of our income comes from assessment.
Income from assessment.
The others come from the fees, the golf fees, the
Right,
marina
right.
fees, the rec center fees.
And water, primarily water.
Water bill, yeah,
Yeah,
water.
but most of our budget, our income is from assessments, right?
About half.
Half.
About half.
No, but is the assessments for the assessment income, at least 50% is what I'm asking, of our 4.7 million?
Close.
Yeah.
Close to it, okay. So if it were only 30%, it wouldn't matter as much what you charge for 762, 790, 782. But what I am wondering, and again, I'm looking at Ms. Graves back here, the number of years that this will go on, remember, it used to be 2032, right? And if we didn't do it something, we'd be all out of here in 10 years. But now the city has got the incorporation, we're working together, moving roughly west. Doesn't matter, and I'd like it explained to me as we go forward, the people that are smarter in math than I am, what does it matter, or it doesn't matter what we charge for the assessment based on if it's 50% of our income for our total budget? And what can we do other than cut programs to lower that amount? To lower the 762, 780, 790, you know?
The only thing that you could do to lower the assessment is dramatic. You'd have to close the golf course, shut down the marina.
No, I'm not saying like somebody at this table said we should be charging half of what we were. I don't agree with that, and I know that's not true. But why wouldn't we charge 740? Why wouldn't we charge 740 next year? What would be the effect of that?
Well, you'd have less income.
Okay?
If you have less income and prices are going up, then it's just like at your house, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
You're gonna have to cut
I
something.
understand that. I understand. I'm retired, so I don't
Yeah.
get what
You
I
don't
get income.
understand, yeah.
But as far as making it last longer, and maybe we could have a public comment to help me on this, because it's important to me, because I've had 3 questions about it. You said if we incorporate it, you know, we'd be here forever. You're not 2032, we'd be here forever.
I don't think we said.
They didn't say
No,
that.
Not forever, okay.
Extend the time.
Longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm wondering is, and I think we really looked carefully at the expenditures, and we came up with 4.7 million. We spent a lot of time on it, but there's a few residents that ask me, and I don't have the answer for them.
Well,
I have a question.
I think, Ken, you have to factor in the fact that costs are skyrocketing for everything. And as we went through that budget process, and every department came to us with a bare bones proposal to keep us in budget.
And we did 3% raises, which I knew we had to do.
Well, and I'll get to that. No, nobody had given them raises for 4 years.
Yeah.
No.
And it was because we chose to do a few things. We chose to put a few more dollars towards the roads. We chose to give our employees a 3% cost of living. In my mind, those are the things that cause us to go back a little bit more towards where we had been. Now,
We didn't really give more for roads, because I've been on 5 years now, and we've always been around 200,000. We didn't give any last year because of this project on
we
State Line.
budgeted it, we just didn't spend it.
Yeah.
Didn't spend.
But if I could add, that, you know, even though you're putting in $200,000 every year for roads, say for 5 years,
Yeah.
while the cost of maintaining the roads is going up.
Yeah.
So we've lost ground in a sense, and what we've been able to put in. I mean, the cost right now with oil the way it is, to asphalt a road or even do the chip and seal is far higher. As Mayor mentioned, they went from 500 and something to 607,000
From 525 to 607.
in a
In
period
less
of,
than a year.
in less than a year. So we've lost ground.
In my mind, you know, you look at, it would be, in an ideal world, this would be a great place if we could just say, well, we're a city now. Let's let the city have it all, you know, and be a city like Berryville or whatever, you know. But our chemistry is a little different here.
They got Walmart, we don't.
That's
That's
right.
exactly right.
That's
Our
right.
chemistry is different here. We don't generate the tax revenues here. And for the city to become the prime and only governing body that provides all the services to everybody that we all expect, it's probably never going to happen. And you're right, the ability for the current AOB to continue there's going to be a drop dead date. But like thousands of other communities all across the state of Arkansas, they establish other districts. You know, we're going to live in a world here at Holiday Island where there will always be a need for a water sewer district and maybe a roads district, or to pay the bills for these things that we all as residents demand. And I know when I was board chair last year, Danny and I were in a meeting, and there were a couple ideas thrown out that could extend the ability to, assess the benefit. Whether we'll go down that road someday or not, I don't know. I may not be on the board, and
I guess I'll finish with this. I apologize for taking this much
No,
time,
that's fine.
but
It's okay.
it's confusing.
It is
It is.
confusing.
It is.
It
It
is
is.
The thing
very.
about it is, 6%, 6% interest and 6% raise of our budget, right? And so we were faced with some limits to what we can raise, right? Otherwise, we shorten that timeline, don't we?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And everybody I've talked to, I've been here 16 years this June. Everybody that's moved in, and I ask them where they're from and welcome, ask, where did you live? Well, Kansas City, Michigan, Hawaii, wherever. I said, did you pay more for your taxes and your cost of living for your home there or here? Where did you pay less? Oh my gosh, here for sure.
Yeah.
There was no question. And I bet 80, probably 70 or 80 people have asked that question. And so I'm proud of what we've done. I'm proud of the budgets that I signed for and voted for, but I just have those questions that continue to linger in my mind.
Well, and that's a very good point, and for, the residents of Holiday Island that don't sit in these meetings, that didn't attend any of the budget sessions, what the heck? You were here, you went here, and now you're coming back here. It makes no sense to them, but I don't think anybody would have a problem with you telling them we had a lot of employees that we were paying $11 an hour.
Yeah, I do.
And your conscience should make it okay to bump up your assessment by $20 a year.
Thank you.
Linda?
Can I just make one comment? Can I do it from here?
Sure.
Okay, just on what Kim was saying, yeah, I was disappointed to see the assessments raised, but I totally understand why they had to be raised. I mean, in this period of time we're going through, the price, like you said, the price of oil affects everything. And the other inflation adds to it. So you saw prices increase just to get employees to stay or get new ones to work for you. You have to have a wage that's attractive.
Yes.
And that adds to your assessment cost. Actually, to see the assessment only increase by $20 over 700 and what'd you say, 62
Yeah.
or 40 or something
Yeah.
that it used to be? I mean, that's not even close to what inflation in oil has raised prices. So actually, you did a really good job keeping it that low, is what I would say. Now, on the other topic of how do we extend this, our ability to continue to collect fees or exist out here and have the amenities available to us, they have to be paid for some way. And, there's probably more than one way to do it. I'm sure it can be done some way, but we're going to have to put our thinking heads together and come up with some ideas and not too far off in the future. So.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yes, please.
Alex DeRossi, 158 Holiday Island Drive. I've been mulling over in my mind the last few minutes whether I should say what I'm about to say. But I think there's something that you all need to consider that some of you in this room have already been made aware of when I did this map over here. I got a readout from the County Tax Commission of all the properties at Holiday Island about 2.5 years ago. It was a pile of papers that thick. I went through every one of them, and that's where all the colors on that map came from, based on the status of all those properties, whether they were vacant lots, whether they were residential lots, commercial lots, developed, etc. And it's been over 2 years since I could update that because of the virus issue. But something that I discovered that only a few of you in this room may remember or know, that only 24% of all the properties at Holiday Island are owned by people who live here. I've never lived in a community where so many of the properties were owned by people that weren't even around at all. 34% of the properties at that time, when I looked it up, had never been titled, never been owned by anybody. They still belong to Holiday Island. That leaves 42% of the properties are owned by people who don't live here. And what my concern was 2 years ago goes back to one thing, and confirm this if I'm right or wrong about this question I'm going to ask. Is it not true that the city eventually is going to have real estate tax imposed on all the properties here?
We have no plans right now. It all depends on if the city and the district decides to transition some responsibility from the district to the city, then we would impose a property tax. There's really only 2 sources of revenue for a city, sales tax and property tax. So we would have to impose a property tax to cover the cost of that transition. The assessments should be able to go down then. But there's a limit to that too. The city can only tax up to 5 mils, so it's not really a lot of money.
Well, my point was going to be, though, based on that, just to confirm that that's a possibility, that 42% of those people there have never been informed about incorporation, twice. The first time when it didn't go through and the second time when it did. They were never notified that we're going to incorporate and have a city of Holiday Island in addition to the Suburban Improvement District. And my biggest worry, my concern when all this came together is that when those people don't know about incorporation until they get a real estate tax bill from the city of Holiday Island, after they've already got their assessment of benefits from the Suburban Improvement District of Holiday Island, you're going to see a lot more turnbacks, I suspect, and that's going to be a big loss of revenue if that happens. Because I think a lot of people, if they've already been turning back their properties, given a quick claim deed, don't want to have it anymore for whatever reason. That's just going to be another incentive why maybe they didn't before, but now they're going to. I'm not going to pay double taxes. Think about it. And now with the cost of everything going up, like you're talking about inflation, we don't see an end to this in sight. And my concern happened way before all this inflationary issue and the COVID virus hit. Now people are really starting to tuck in, they're being more cautious about how they spend their money. So all I'm saying is, it may not happen, I hope it doesn't, but if it does, you need to think about that possibility and how we're going to balance all these things you're trying to do to develop. It all takes money.
That's right.
And I hate to think that we could lose a lot of revenue from that 42% of the people that have never been here. Something to think about.
They pay AOGs now.
We need to appreciate the elected officials for the city for their commitment not to have a property tax, I think. And in my mind, I think that's a huge thing, Alex. And you bring up a very good...
But like Dan said, it can only go so far because the expenses continue. And you can only limit your expenditures so much.
Well, and the demand for services continues to increase too.
Yeah. So just something to think about, okay?
This isn't something that can happen overnight, but one part of the solution is to fill these vacant lots up with houses. And we've been issuing a lot of building permits the last couple of years. I spent the whole morning going over 3 more, and we're issuing 17 to 25 building permits a year now for new houses in Holiday Island. That's after going about 10 years not issuing any.
Yeah.
And so if we can keep that rolling and even expand that, grow on it. I talked to 2 people this morning that are planning on building, 2 more builders that are planning on building spec homes in Holiday Island because they see it as the best place to put their money. They're liquidating their assets in Austin, Texas, and moving up here. and they plan on buying lots and putting houses on them and selling them. So if we can, you know, one of the big problems with Holiday Island is that the people that are here are overburdened financially by 3 times the infrastructure than
Yeah.
what is needed to support the people that are here. That was the original sin of the original developer, to put in, you know, infrastructure for 5,000 lots, when he only had 20 of them sold. And we now we have to maintain 70 miles of road, 70 miles of sewer and water line, even though we only have population. If we had the normal city population density, we'd only have about 25 miles of roads, not 70. So it might be great that people, they know, I love the fact that I live out on the end of 1 mile, you know, high Sid Street, and there's nobody else out there, and I can shoot deer in my backyard. But it costs all of us to have that. To have that person down at the end of that road being the only customer costs us all a lot of money.
Yeah.
So.
Could I add a bit of levity here at the end, okay?
We could use
I'd
levity.
like to end on a negative note. Positive. And a couple of you in the room have already, I can think of 3 or 4 of you that have already heard this before. You talked about closing a golf course. And that's come up and down a number of times. And some people are serious about it, some just kind of throw it out there, you know. I came up with a marketing plan about that. The first thing they say, how do you repurpose the golf course? Let's take the 9-hole, okay, as an example. What do you do with that? You don't let the weeds grow up. I said, you make it a cemetery. And I've got the marketing plan all figured out already too. Come to Holiday Island, if you buy a lot, you get a free plot. Once you come to Holiday Island, you never have to leave.
I love it.
That sounds okay.
You heard it here first.
Holiday Island, they're dying to get here.
Can you just see it? The Keys Crypt. See the Keys Crypt out there. The Holy Sepulchre. The Noonan Tomb. Bill used to be on the board. The Noonan Tomb. I can just see it out there on the 9-hole golf course. And why most people would come, they want to see the Linda Grave site.
The gravesite.
Oh, dear.
Oh, thank you, Alex. We needed a laugh.
No charge.
Alex, you forgot my name, Dyer.
Dyer, you even stopped.
You're going to be buried in the lake. You're going to be buried at sea.
It isn't there.
All right, let's get back to where we were, which was talking about the financial reports.
Yes.
Do any commissioners have any questions for Jennifer or Danny regarding the financial reports?
Jennifer, are you looking at anything that's a little bit wondering for you, and you and Danny, on the report?
I don't think so. You know, we have, I'll say we, she has found a lot of things to clean up. Excise tax is very complicated. Just different things that we've worked on. But nothing that's really jumped out as a financial red flag.
I want to echo what the chair said earlier, that we really appreciate these are March, and we're getting them February, getting them now, March, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you probably will notice, they do get this breakdown, right? The statement of revenue.
Yeah.
Okay, you're gonna probably see some where, like on the revenue and expenses, where it's got like, when you start going over and it says annual budget $0 or whatever. And the reason for that is, as I've gotten and worked with the ladies and found out what more of these expenses are and more of these revenues are, a lot of these revenues or expenses were just lumped up into one thing called other income or whatever. And I was like, why? And it was like, didn't have a place for it, didn't have an account for it, we just lumped it up. So this year, you're going to probably see where it doesn't look like you're getting as much revenue in this one line item, but you're getting these other revenues that had 0, and it's because we're creating accounts because I'm trying to make it more transparent for the financials for everyone to see what does that actually make up, because because I think we had like some utilities put in different utility lines, but then some of them were getting thrown into purchase services, and I was like, but then you don't know your true utility costs and everything, so you will see that, and if you have any questions of any of that, then just kind of please ask, because I'm trying to, you know, when I'm seeing things that are coming in that you are getting on a monthly basis, it should have its own account instead of it being thrown into other.
Yes.
Because then when you have people ask you, well, what's in other?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, it's just a jumble of all of this. So we've really been working to try to get the accounts where they're, you know, more accurately depicted of what's actually being expensed and what's actually being brought in as revenue.
And named appropriate.
Yes, yes.
I asked a lot of questions about what something was because the name didn't match what the expense went into. So thank
Yes.
you for doing that.
Yes.
Ken, you asked a question?
I have an accounting question.
Okay,
The year-end depreciation
yes, sir.
that you have to make, and I worked in governmental accounting for a long time, and we had to do that.
Yes, sir.
And it's just a statistical or a memo account. And where does that close into?
It's actually a balance sheet account.
It's not an expense.
Correct. It's on the balance sheet, so yes. So if you you didn't have to put that in.
Well, let me look at this stack here, I may
You
have,
know,
I do have a balance sheet here.
So, yeah, so on the balance sheet, can I see that one?
That's January.
but it doesn't close into retained earnings or anything like that.
Yes and
It's the same
no.
number.
I mean, you have to look at, y'all are not governmental accounting.
But this is typically happens in a governmental.
Right, that typically happens in a governmental accounting.
If you-
Y'all are a proprietary, so you use enterprise, so you have to be careful because y'all technically don't have a fund balance. Because, and I was speaking to Danny on that, because normally in governmental accounting, your income statement closes to your balance sheet and you have your fund balance at the end. Y'all are proprietary, so y'all have a net position. And you have to look at it because your income is not true cash received. Because your assessments shows $2.5 million right now in your income statement.
And so.
But you're not, because it offsets on your balance sheet, so you
Okay,
have
so
to look
the
at.
2021 statement showed the accounts receivable for a bunch of it is uncollectible.
Exactly. So that's where that's the difference, because everything doesn't technically close into a fund balance. You have to look at it because it's a net position. Because even though on your income statement, you're showing that you received $2.5 million in revenue for assessments, you didn't, because you have a receivable sitting on your balance sheet at 1.4 at the end of the year.
Allowance for uncollectible, that's not an expense, that's a balance sheet entry also.
Yes, sir. And so when you're doing
So
your depreciation is an expense, but it is on the balance sheet because you have your accumulated depreciation. So basically your expense rolls over and it's in your accumulated depreciation. So you have your accumulated depreciation plus your
I was
fixed
wondering where it
assets.
went.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's where it
It's sitting on your balance sheet. So you'll have your accumulated depreciation, which is all your depreciation expense from the years it was
Well,
purchased.
That's why there's such a difference between your actual income and I mean, your actual
Net
your actual
position.
profit.
Yes,
or in lieu of what the other is. Okay.
yes,
Okay.
sir.
I think I understand now.
Yes,
I- I haven't dealt with that kind of stuff for a long time.
Right.
Linda?
Yeah, I had a comment. I noticed that on the website of the latest financial report is as of the end of December. Are you gonna catch that up soon?
The January and the February is what they're looking at to approve right now.
Okay. Great.
Yes.
Thanks.
There's a little bit behind because you have to ensure, it takes a little bit longer at the beginning of the year because we always try to, as accountants, before we close January, you have to wait until about January 31st to ensure that you get everything in, because if there's anything that was actually December, you've got to get your accruals accurately so that we can present them to the auditors. So that's the reason at the beginning of the year for the delay, because we didn't want to present something and then say, oh, wait, we need to show this and get revised ones because more invoices or things came in that we needed to do journal entries and prepare for audit.
Okay.
HICID is actually a corporation, right?
Industrial district.
Huh?
When you're looking at the breakout of how to do it, whether it falls under governmental, fiduciary, or proprietary or whatever, because they provide services, that's why it's under the proprietary, which is enterprise fund accounting.
I believe I was told that we need to make a motion to accept the financials before they would go on the website. So
I'll move to accept them.
Ken has made a motion to accept the financials for January and February. Is that correct? And do we have a second?
No, second.
Okay. Phyllis has seconded. Fingers waving, didn't we? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Carried unanimously. We want to thank the members of the audience that were here today. We're going to move into executive session for the purpose of considering employment, appointment, promotion, demotion, discipline, or resignation of a public officer or employee, and then we'll return at the end of that session. So, thank you. Let's take a 5-minute break.
I noticed it.
That's right.
What do you think? Thank you, Alex. I'll call you. Thank you. Yeah.
You're not accountant, started his life.
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
This should go this way.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Well, actually, all of ours here are capital, or most of them. We've got a threshold to fill. So that's one there's
Yeah,
no
and I appreciate
They
you saying
keep them down as purchase because it's a policy that's over 5,000, automatically goes on our fixed asset
So like
schedule.
say this is
It could be important because
And there is a huge list, it's about 18 pages long, that I have to go through. And that's why you see,
And if you
that our
actually
accumulated depreciation is around 31.
ownership of the road,
But you have to think that's the golf course, that's, there's a lot of land, things like that. But then you also have all of
then I don't know if there's
equipment and
any book
everything
value
for all the
in
different
the roads
departments.
anymore.
I think there is.
They have a couple of years back. They had a couple of books out there. So you
Yeah, a lot has changed, especially after Enron, and all that debacle and all that kind of stuff,
So
so.
right now, I assume you wouldn't have to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that also could become
Bad.
important.
Well, I gave you.
Right, right.
Maybe you can come up with.
Really, I had to learn what the difference
You can know all the assessments and payments.
Yeah. And I hope
But I don't think
correctly
that
and say,
will
I can see how it goes and all of that, because sometimes it can
using
be
the
hard
value
to
of that
attend.
asset you contributed.
But you were right, that it does flow.
In determining what the assessed benefit is. Now, that's getting
Well,
into
it
Ken
kind of flows
Hutchinson's
into like
sandbox.
your net position and everything, but all of those balances
And
were
so I
above.
think when we do
Right,
this
and that's why it's on balance
dedication
sheet,
and
because you
acceptance,
have your
we need
accumulated
to be sure to
appreciation,
use
and
the
then you
words
have what's left in
dedicated
value.
right away. Not dedicating the roads.
Well, that may change
just can be
the
the
necessity.
And
for
so you
having
really
it
don't
on
see
the
it because it's an end of
Could
year
be.
entry.
We're conveying right away.
Instead of having a profit of.
Could be.
So that's
So glad I'm not on this board anymore.
appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
Well, but you can't really look at
You
it
know,
that way either,
I need to hear,
because when
do
you're
you know the
looking at
figure for,
your
70
expenses and
for
revenue last year,
last year,
even though it looked like you had 1.5, you've got to remember
The only thing
your
I have,
proprietary. So
in my
you
brain
recognize
right now
revenue when it's
was
billed,
from,
not when received.
Super Sunday, we made a
And,
little over 14,000.
And that's what confuses
billing
people.
all
Are you
these,
kidding me?
billing for lot costs.
Wow, that's awesome.
It was
Yeah,
way.
I was on the board.
They were ready to get out and do it, and I had a call from Tara while I was sitting there. I said, my phone is never rung as much as it did during this meeting. I had 2 long distance phone calls,
I did
2
it.
local calls, and
Every time we get in a board meeting, we got to
Are we
figure.
gonna go into any
I'm gonna go stay here.
and the
You had
board-
no money.
We had the
Time
money, we
until you-
had the money, but the board wouldn't.
Give it a
pass-
second or two.
wouldn't make
Gotcha.
the commitment.
Go ahead. You're not laughing when you say